Okay, hello everyone. I am going to be going through solutions to the two Part 8 sample PAT questions. You do have solutions, so you can check your answers already. You can check the solutions, but it can be helpful if you're stuck on something to have a solution being worked out that you can listen to. So I'm going to go through all of these, see how many I get through. I'm hoping I can get through them fairly quickly and upload these and have these ready for you to look at this afternoon. Let's see how this goes. All right, so without further ado, here we go. Question number 1. So we're adding integers and we have to look at our signs. So we've got -3 minus -4 plus -10. So let's start off. I'm going to rewrite a couple things. I've got -3. When I subtract a negative, it's like we add the opposite. So if you see where we're subtracting a negative, it's like we're adding a positive. Okay, we're doing the exact opposite thing. So when I subtract a negative, I add the opposite. So I'm just simply going to instead add +4. Or I'm going to add 4. When I add a negative, that's the same as subtracting. So I can write this as -10. So if we're adding a negative, it's like minusing 10. Okay, now that's a little easier to look at. I can do this a couple ways. I can take these two and add them together and then next to this one, or I could take my negative numbers and combine those first. That may or may not make it a little easier. But let's see, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go from left to right, and that might be good for most of you doing that. So -3 plus 4. So remember, we have different signs. We're combining these two numbers. If I have opposite signs, I'm adding something to a negative, we're going to take the difference, okay, and then assign the sign of the larger number. All right, so taking the difference, I'm always going to put my bigger number first, then I'm going to subtract the other number, that's taking the difference, and I get a 1. Now this might be my answer, as long as my 4, this first number, was positive, and it was, so my answer is indeed +1, so I'm just going to leave that as 1, -10. Now I have the situation again. We can't see the plus sign here, okay, but if there's no sign, we know it's positive. So I've got a +1 and a -10. So again, opposite signs. I'm going to take the difference. I'm going to take that larger number and subtract. The difference is 9. Now in this case, the original sign of 10 was negative. So we had more negative numbers than we had positive. We had 10 negatives and 1 positive. So our overall result will then be negative. So my answer to this question is -9. Okay. Just going to double check my work because I don't have solutions in front of me, and I don't know if this is going to stop recording. So let's have a look. Of course, at any time in this video, you can just scroll forward, right? Move the video forward so you can find the question you're interested in getting an answer to. So if I'm taking too long or I'm going too slow for you, then you just move on to the next question. Okay, so assuming this is right, double check your answer key. I will check mine later. Everyone makes mistakes, but the answer should be -9. Okay, let's do the next one. We've got -7, -11. So those are the same sign. These are going to combine, right? So, and then we're going to add a negative. So what did we say about adding negatives? That is like subtracting, okay? We're adding another negative number into the mix. So we actually have 1, 2, 3 negative numbers. So we're just going to combine them all, meaning I'm just going to add them up. So what is 7 and 11? 7 and 11 is 18. So you could do this in steps if it makes it easier for you. Okay, and we still have to subtract that 9. So we've got a -18 and a -9, so I'm going to combine them again. So 18 and 9, so think, what is 18 plus 9? We get 27, but we're talking about negative numbers here. So final answer, -27. Okay, there we go. Question number 2 done. On to number 3. Let's rewrite again. We've got 12 minus a negative. What do we do? If we subtract a negative, it's the same as adding a positive. So we're just going to write +15. We're subtracting 7, nothing strange going on there, so we just keep that sign the same. Okay, so now we just add these two together. 12 plus 15. 5 and 2 is 7, 1 and 1 is 2. 27. We still have to subtract that 7. 27 minus 7, that's a pretty easy one. And we get 20, positive. And there's our answer to number 3. Okay, we're cooking. Let's keep moving. Here we go. Question number 4. What is the value of 2 to the power of 3? Or 2 to exponent 3 plus 2 to exponent 0. All right, so we have 2 to the power of 3. If you don't have this memorized, understand that what we're doing is multiplying. That's what exponents mean, right? 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, right? 2 times 2, 4. 4 times 2, 8. That one on its own is 8. 2 to the power of 0, that's a special rule we learned, that anything to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So what were we doing? We were adding 2 to the power of 3 plus 2 to the power of 0. So we were adding 8 plus 1. So maybe I'm just going to, let's just rewrite this to make sure it's clear. So 2 to the power of 3, which is 8, plus 2 to the power of 0, which is 1. We get 9. Easy peasy. Okay, question number 5, more powers. What is the value of 4 squared plus 2 to the power of 5 plus 3 to the power of 0? 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay, you shouldn't need to write this out, but if you do and it helps you, that's great. 16. What is 2 to the power of 5? Now, something you might want to do is start memorizing powers of 5. They're pretty handy to know. But for now, if you're not sure what 2 to the power of 5 is, we can just expand to how many times do we multiply 2? 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. Times 2 gets us to 32. Okay, so 32. And we already know 3 to the power of 0 is 1. We're adding, so we're just going to add those all up. 4 squared plus 2 to the power of 5 plus 3 to the 0 is 16 plus 32 plus 1, which is going to equal, should I write it here? Sure, I'll try to squeeze it on. Actually, yeah, I can do that. There we go. Okay, so what we have 6 plus 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, 3 and 4, we should get 49. Okay, if you need to write those down vertically, go ahead and do it. Okay, if you're good at mental math, you can just add those up in your head. Just take your time, make sure you get the answer correct. Okay, so there we go. Also, just as an aside, you don't need to learn this, but may be handy if we start with powers of 2. I'm going to skip, well, should we start all the way at 0? We're going to start at 2 squared, okay? Actually, you know what? Hold up. Okay, so let's go back, actually. Let's start with 2 to the power of 1. We don't usually see that written like that, right? We know that that's just 2 times itself one time, which means nothing. We're not multiplying it by anything. It's still just 2, right? So if we see a 2, sometimes it's helpful to understand any whole number that we see, or any, I should say, integer number, any rational number that does not have an exponent, we can consider as the exponent 1. Okay, 2 squared is 2 times, so we times 2. 2 cubed is 4, is 2 squared times 2. 2 to the 4 is 8 times 2, which is 16, and I wish I had more room there to make a nice little column, but I don't. So here we go. 2 to the power of 5 is 16 times 2, which is 32. Now you could continue on with these, but for now I think that's good enough. You don't have to memorize these, but they're handy to know, right? kind of like our multiplication table. It's handy to know, okay? Makes things easier, quicker when we're doing stuff in math. We don't always have to be reaching out for that calculator. All right, question number 6. Question number 6 says to evaluate the following 4 expressions. So we want to get the value. And it's asking us which numbered expression shown above has the largest value and what is that value. All right, so they're going to calculate all of these one at a time. Okay, so expression number 1, negative 2 to the power of 3. So remember, exponents are applied to whatever they're attached to. So whatever they're attached to is the thing right next to it. Think of it, you could think of it like a little balloon. So for example, I'm just going to write this on the side just for this one example. Okay, here's my negative 2, and the 3 was right here. It's like he's holding on to that little balloon. Okay, who's holding on to it? The parentheses is holding on to it. So this power of 3, or this exponent 3, is applying to the parentheses, which means it's applying to anything inside those parentheses, right? Because that's what we do in math, right? Think about our bed mass. We always start with brackets. So we're going to evaluate what's inside the brackets. Okay, so we do exponents first. Okay, brackets. Okay, nothing to do inside of here, but then exponent is operating on this whole thing. So that means we're going to repeat this multiplication 3 times, including that negative sign. Okay, so that's important to understand. All right, so back to our problem on the left. So here's my negative sign. I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, now I'm just going to expand these. There's also other rules we learned about if this is an odd exponent. Okay. And we're applying it to this number, right? Including the brackets here. If it's an odd exponent, we know we're just going to get 2 to the power of 3, and odd exponents are going to give us a negative answer. That's a rule we can follow. But to kind of just keep this simpler, and so you don't have to remember the rules, we know that exponents just mean this is how many times I'm taking this number and I'm multiplying it to itself that many times. So I'm going to multiply it to itself 3 times. Okay, so we could do it that way as well. If we're dealing with large exponents, though, we definitely need to understand those numbers about when we're multiplying, when we're using the, when we have an even exponent, we would get a positive number. When we use an odd exponent, we get a negative number. That is as long as we have brackets, though, okay? So let's just keep it simple. Let's just expand this. So now I have negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. All right, we know that a negative times a negative is a positive, and then that'll give us positive 4, right? But then we multiply by negative 2, and a positive times a negative gives us a negative. So the result after multiplying all 3 of those together would be negative 8. But don't forget, we haven't done anything with this negative sign here yet. Okay, so if we put a negative sign in front of something, it's the same as multiplying by negative 1. Or you can just think of it, we're just simply switching the sign from whatever it was, okay? So my result of all of this was negative 8, right? But I still haven't had my negative sign. So if I have negative times negative 8, I'm going to get positive 8. Okay, that's going to change my sign. The other way is you could count up the number of negatives in this multiplication. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's an even a number of negative signs being multiplied together, that's also going to give you a positive result, okay? And as I said, the other way we can think of those negatives, if it helps, when we're multiplying, okay, not when we're subtracting, but this is a negative sign in front, we're multiplying, we could also kind of consider this like the negative is negative 1 times the rest, right, times negative 2 to the power of 3. Okay, so then we get this answer here. We get negative 8, and then we're going to multiply that by negative 1, and we get positive 8. Okay, but really, if that helps you, think about it that way. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Just realize this is changing the sign. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to actually erase that because I don't want to give you too much information. You do what works for you, just trying to give you options. And that's the important thing. You always just do what works, okay? Do what works for you. Okay, number 2. Expression number 2, we've got negative 2 to the power of 3. Who is holding the power of 3 balloon? It's the number 2, okay? So that only applies to him. That negative sign is left out of it. All right, so we're just going to plop that negative sign there. And then we're going to do our multiplications. 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed, we know is 8. And then we apply the negative sign after. Okay, so my answer is negative 8. All right. I'm going to get rid of this because I need some room. Number 3. Number 3. We have negative, parenthesis, negative 3 to the power of 2. The parentheses are holding the balloon, so we're just squaring that. Let's leave our negative sign there. I've got negative 3 times negative 3. And remember, I said even exponent's going to make this positive, so this will give me positive 9 times the negative. We should get negative 9. Or if we expand it like this, we get negative 3 times negative 3. Negative times negative is a positive 9, right? Multiplied by a negative, we're going to change the sign and we get negative 9. Other way you could do is count up all the negative signs. I've got negative 1, 2, 3. I have 3 negative signs. So odd number of negatives, always going to give us a negative answer. Last one, expression number 4, I'm just going to go up here. We have negative 3 squared. Now, look, they were being a little tricky here. Okay, our square is inside the bracket. So who's holding the balloon? Negative 3? Nope, not even. Okay, just the negative 3. Just the 3, pardon me, is holding the balloon. So let's look at it this way. Let's do our little balloon drawing. Okay, here we go. Boom, boom. 3 is holding the balloon in our parentheses. So we're only applying this square to that 3. So everything else stays there. We've got, I'm just going to draw a line here so we don't get confused. This is all here. Okay, so I've got my negative sign, got my parentheses. I have my other negative. I leave that there. It's not part of this. And we're simply going to multiply 3 times 3, okay? Because that doesn't apply to the sign. So I've got 3 times 3 is 9. And how many negatives? I have 1 times 2. I have a negative times a negative. So I should get a positive. So my answer here is positive 9, okay? Or if we just go straight to this idea, we're applying this square only to the 3. 3 squared is 9. Then we have a negative and another negative. 2 negatives gives us a positive. They asked us which expression has the largest value. So obviously positive numbers are larger than negative numbers. So we can get rid of those negative numbers right away. If they ask us for the smallest value or the least value, then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to look at the most negative. But in this case, they want the largest value. So let's get rid of those. That's not the largest. It's negative. That's a negative. Now we've got 8 and 9. Which one's bigger? 9 it is. So that means that expression number 4 is the correct answer. So this would be a numeric response. All part A is numeric response. So there's going to be a place here for you to put your answer in, and just read carefully how they're asking you to write your answer. On the PAT, you're not going to be allowed hints or help. However, if you're unsure of how they're asking you to enter the information, that I think would be an acceptable question to ask. You can't ask for hints of how to do the question or what the answer is, but sometimes it's confusing of how they want you to enter that and you want to get it right. Okay, so they are probably going to ask you for what is the number, and your answer would be 4 because expression number 4 is the largest value. Okay, so I'm at 20 minutes here already, so I'm going to stop this recording so that these don't take forever to upload, and I'm going to do this in parts. Okay, so we're going to stop here